episode of Voices of Inclusive Research podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Wren, founder of Diverse Research Now. Today, we will hear the voice of Dr. Aliya Frederick. She is a child neurologist here in San Diego, and she is a researcher. Her research is focused on pediatric migraines, and she is the PI and co-PI of several industry-sponsored studies. I would also like to add that Dr. Frederick is a beauty queen. Yes, we have beauty queens in research. And I'm so excited to have her here to share her amazing work that she is doing and her thoughts on inclusive research. So let's dive into this great conversation. How are you doing today, Dr. Frederick?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to be here to talk to you about research. So
Yes. Thank you so much. When I met you, I was just in awe of you. I was just like, yes.
Well, that's nice. Thank you.
It was so, and I love that you are a doctor doing some amazing work in the field, but then you have your other passions that you're pursuing, the beauty queen, the pageants that you do. I just love that because I think that it's good to indulge in all of our passions. And I love that.
Yeah. Well, I really have a passion for advocacy and mentorship. And really, the pageant world really allowed me to take that to a different level as far as networking, having a platform, because there's lots of doors that have opened for me through pageantry that otherwise would not have opened. So I've met people, made connections, been able to really kind of further some of the other things I care about through pageantry. And then also it's fun, right?
It's so fun.
I met incredible people, and definitely, I didn't get into pageants until I was, I'm in my 40s, right?
And don't look it.
So not until my 30s. Didn't enter a pageant until my 30s. So what I have found is that people who get into pageantry later in life, there's a lot of really incredible women. They're entrepreneurs. They're running nonprofits, right?
Yes.
They are professional women doing a lot of different things. And so they bring all of that to pageantry. So it's just, what we think about in our mind about pageantry is just really not what's really happening. And I've made incredible friends, incredible connections through pageantry. So
I love that.
It's been worth it for sure. It's been a lot of fun.
I love it. And so how has your research work played a part in this? Does it intersect in any way?
My research doesn't necessarily intersect with that, but certainly with my platform that I've created through pageantry, and really goes back to kind of who I am at the core and really why I got into medicine and interesting in mentorship and all of that. I developed a platform called Be Inspired, Dream Bigger. And that's really about helping to make sure that people can see themselves in different spaces so that young children know that there is a space for them in healthcare, there's a space for them in research, there is a space for them in medicine, and showing them those opportunities, and then also helping them to have experiences in those fields. So if it's us coming to you, doing some type of hands-on activity, showing you a neuroscience activity, and really introducing you to this is the brain and this is how the brain works and that sort of thing, just lighting that curiosity. Or if it's you coming in the last year, we've started some programs over at the hospital to bring organizations to the campus and do healthcare career panels and that sort of thing, and kind of really just showing them these are the opportunities in healthcare. Here are people that look like you that are doing these jobs. This is within your reach. This is something you can do. So that's where that intersection for me has been. And I've really been able to take that to the next level through some of my interactions and connections that I've made through pageantry.
Yeah, and I love that the representation, because you're a Black woman, these children of diverse backgrounds can see that people that look like them can do what you're doing.
And for me, the representation part is really at the core of a lot of what I do, because when I was younger in high school and these sorts of things, I never really thought about a career in medicine. I didn't have any role models in medicine. I didn't have any role models in science. It wasn't really something that I was thinking like, oh, that's the job for me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where that kind of thought of even becoming a physician came from. Really? But like one day that was just like, maybe that's something I can do. I'm good in science. I'm good in
How old were you?
I have no idea. I I don't
because
know.
I feel like most people, as they grow up, always have like that dream.
Yeah.
Of, you have doctor,
It was
lawyer,
there, but I
and-
also said I was going to be in the Olympics
Oh,
as a gymnast.
okay.
So, that was not realistic. I'm not good at gymnastics. I had these thoughts like when I was younger, but it wasn't really, I think in high school is kind of when I really was like, okay, well, let me go think about pre-med because it makes sense. I like science and I'm good in these areas. But I actually was really fortunate because when I was looking for colleges, there was the University of Maryland, Baltimore County is where I went for undergrad, and they have a scholarship program which is really focused on getting people from minority backgrounds into science careers. So PhD focused, and they provide scholarships, so money, development, so peer development, professional development opportunities, research, support, all these sorts of things. So I was really fortunate. They actually reached out to me. I found out about the program and I'm like, yeah, let me look into this and see what this is all about. Ended up getting accepted into the program and ultimately going there. And that was probably what really made like all the difference in kind of that trajectory for my future, because through that program, also didn't know anything about research. I ended up my very first summer in college getting through a connection from that program, going to England for a summer, worked in a research lab. This was no idea about neuroscience. Put me in a neuroscience research lab. They were studying neurodegeneration. I was like, this is fascinating. I love this.
And that triggered.
Didn't know nothing about the brain. Exactly. And I worked there all summer and I'm like, oh my God, I came back. I need to be a neuroscience major. First experience, I need to do neuroscience research. And so we didn't have a neuroscience major at that time. So I was a biochemistry major, but that experience is what really put that thought into my mind. This is an actual really feasible career opportunity for me. And that stuck with me all through college. I initially came in, I was thinking, I want to give this research a shot, ended up really loving that. Still had in my mind about medicine. That's how I ended up going for an MD, PhD, a combined program, and competing both of those. So, and ended up doing my PhD in neuroscience. So, where my interest is still interested in neuroscience. So, neuroscience research.
Yeah.
So that's
tell us about that.
Brings us all to that. So,
tell us about the research.
Obviously, as a PhD researcher, I was very basic with research. Like I initially started out we were working with animal models. I work with rabbit models. I work with mice. I was doing a lot of biochemistry, like very basic science. I think over the years with more clinical time, like I've transferred more to clinical research, which is what I've been doing more recently. And within my clinical areas, I see a lot of epilepsy, I see a lot of headache, and these are really common complaints in pediatrics. And I really have found that headache in particular is an area that really kind of interests me because it's just so common, and it's like really one of the few areas in neurology where we can actually really change someone's life and make a difference, in a positive way. So lots of things we don't have cures for, or we can't really make
understand
someone
what's going on.
We don't understand, or we don't have a treatment. But in headache, there's a lot we can do. And it's so common, especially in pediatrics.
Really?
We really can make a difference in people's lives. So I really have enjoyed that. And in pediatrics, as far as thinking about the treatment options, we're pretty limited as far as treatment options. So that has led me to kind of want to get more into clinical trials, bringing new treatments to our patients, and then also thinking about what other types of, I'm really interested in neuromodulation and devices. So thinking about these non-pharmaceutical types of treatments that we have, how can we be applying those into pediatrics?
How common is it? Because you're saying that it's common. When I found out about your research, I didn't realize how common migraines were or headaches were in children.
Yes. The prevalence kind of increases as we go up into adolescence. So we're talking like very young children, like 3 to 5 years old, it's probably like 3% or something like that. But as we're getting up to, by the time a child is 11 years old, like the prevalence in that population, 11 and like older, so like middle school age and older, it's already a quarter of kids who will have had migraine, or at least had a migraine. But when we're thinking about, for most people, 25%, okay, so 25% of the population there, and children and adolescents having migraine. And then kind of there's a smaller proportion of those who have what we would consider kind of chronic migraines. So they're more frequent, they're longer lasting, they may need a daily treatment to help with their migraine. So there is that smaller group of that. It's pretty common. And actually, if we look at the World Health Organization, looking at disability related to migraine, so it's the third leading cause of disability for children or people actually people from
Yeah.
about age 15 to 50. It's the third leading cause of disability. It's migraine specifically accounts for more years of disability than all other neurologic conditions. When we think about how common it is, it's so common, but it doesn't get that same focus as a lot of these other rare disorders and things like that. But when we think about just the sheer impact, it's quite large.
Well, it's debilitating for
Exactly.
sure. Migraines
Yes.
can be very debilitating
Yes.
for sure. And I'm sure there's different levels.
Yes.
So do you have any demographics of who, like the children, like what ethnic group might be more affected by the migraine?
I don't think we have it broken down that much. It would be interesting to look at too. I often wonder about who we end up seeing in the clinic too, and if there are referral biases, because first of all, it takes the family recognizing that there's a problem for them to even bring it up to the physician, their primary physician. And so lots of people don't even know they have migraines. And they're just like, oh, I have regular headaches, or I have sinus problem, or,
they're
allergies,
not even identifying it as
whatever.
migraine.
Right. So they don't even identify it. So it's not even making it to that next step. So once you make that next step too, depending on the physician, the primary physician, how serious they take it and what they do with that information too can also kind of impact it. So I know for us, it's a long way to get into neurology. So sometimes it is those families who are a little bit more savvy, or the pediatrician refers everybody. There's just people who just don't get to us and probably still should. I've always been interested in kind of that breakdown, but it certainly starts with us just being aware of the fact that it's not normal to have a headache every day.
No.
Or frequent headaches is just not normal. So there are things we can do to help with that too, especially if you're missing school and activities and these sorts of things.
Well, it sounds like there's some gaps in this research that maybe researchers out there could look into, or maybe they are looking into, maybe we don't know. But this is a great area. When I found out about your research, wanted to highlight what you were doing at our annual community clinical trial health forum that we have in May. We're going to have another one coming up this May. I'm hoping to continue to highlight your research. But I think that this is so important for diverse communities to know, because these are probably the communities that are kind of just, not recognizing what's going on.
Right.
Because there's so many other things that might be going on. And I just never have heard, in my experience, I've never heard of families who have really paid attention. Never have heard children saying, oh, I have a headache or a migraine, and the parents are like, oh, they're complaining constantly of headaches, migraines. I guess what I'm thinking now is, when people come to you into your clinic, is it the parents that are saying this is what the kid is? I'm just wondering who recognizes that it's a problem.
So usually it is the parent. Right.
Or
well, it depends on the age too, because sometimes it is the parent. Obviously, if a child is complaining enough, then maybe you're tired of hearing about them complain about something. So you're thinking, okay, this is worth some additional evaluation. And sometimes if the kids are older, then maybe they recognize that it is more of an issue. And sometimes the pediatricians do feel comfortable to go ahead and diagnose, especially if there is a family history. And we do know that with migraine in particular and some other headaches, that we may not understand all the specific genes that are involved, but there certainly are genetic parts of this too. So you may find that this side of the family, everyone has issues with headaches, or mom has it and her sister has it and grandma had it. And that's very common to have a family history, but it doesn't always have to be that way. And sometimes we certainly have kids when no one else in the family really has a history of migraine. And certainly maybe in those cases, depending on what we hear from the history, sometimes we do a little bit of additional evaluation. First and foremost, we want to exclude things we want to understand first when someone comes to us, is it a primary headache or is it a secondary headache, meaning that the headache is related to something else. So that's part of our evaluation, is making sure first, what exactly are we dealing with? And then if it is migraine or some other primary headache, then thinking about what we need to do as far as treatment. And since there really we're limited as far as FDA approved treatments in pediatrics, that's where clinical trials come involved. And so we've got 3 open clinical trials right now. And actually we were just just before I came here, we were doing a pre-site visit to bring an additional trial. So there's a lot of opportunity to expand what we're able to offer to patients. We're always looking to do that. That's open to anybody, anyone coming in or being referred from somewhere else, a primary doctor or some other practice, is eligible to be part of a clinical trial if they meet the criteria. So we certainly want to make sure that everyone has that opportunity, just because it does open what we have as far as available treatments. It does require a few additional visits, but and close, we're monitoring closely and you're getting more time with us. So I think that's a positive thing.
It is a positive thing, and that's one of the things we tell the community, that it's positive. It's a positive thing to be able to see a doctor on a regular basis when you're involved in a clinical trial. So tell me a little bit, can you share any details of maybe one of the trials that you're doing right now? What exactly are you looking at?
Yeah, so one of the trials, so let's say for an acute treatment, so we're trying new acute treatments to see how they work to stop a headache. So when we think about for migraine, our treatments fall into kind of our acute treatments, meaning things that you would do when you get the headache. What can you do as a treatment to stop the headache? So, goal is to have you headache free in a reasonable amount of time. So an hour, 2 hours or so, we would want the headache to be gone.
Okay.
And then we also have the other arm of that would be prevention, meaning if your headaches are so frequent that maybe we need to do something to reduce the frequency so that you're not having a headache every day of the week. Maybe you're having a headache once a week or maybe once a month, some lower frequency. So one of the trials we have open right now is for acute treatments. Pretty much the way it would go is that you would come in, we would kind of go through the trial, do all the consenting, answer all the questions, go through everything. We have a whole visit dedicated just to information, right? Making sure you understand everything. And then once you're enrolled in that, then we come back and we do some baseline tasks. So make sure your electrolytes are normal, your blood counts are normal, making sure your heart rhythm is normal. So we want to make sure you're already at a baseline healthy place to kind of be involved in the trial. And then we're also doing some information gathering with some self-reporting over about a month or so. We want to understand your physician, like we have information about your history of how frequent headaches are, but we want to see kind of prior into going into the trial, kind of what that frequency is like. So we're gathering some information at what your headaches are like, how frequent are they, and that sort of thing. So then if you are still meeting criteria, then you go into, so they're placebo controlled. So you either get a study drug or you get a placebo. And, I don't know who gets what. Right. So it's blinded on multiple ways. The patient doesn't know. I don't know. The study coordinator doesn't know, but everything is kind of, the patient is de-identified kind of in the system. And so there's some way that they do this, that you get something. And so then we're monitoring. So when you take it, then there's a series of questions that you have to answer 2 hours after you took the study drug, or 24 hours, just so we can understand how it worked, did it work on your headache or not. So again, we don't know if you got a placebo or a study drug. And then kind of the next visit, we're wrapping things up. So something like that would be just a couple of visits. But one of the benefits of doing a placebo controlled trial like that is that, so we don't know if you got study drug or placebo. You're honestly giving your response, did it work or did it not, when you do your surveys. But after you've completed that, you are actually able to roll over into what's called an open label, which means you get access to the study drug. So now we know you have the study drug and you're able to use that as a treatment. Whereas previously that drug medication would not have been available to you. Now it is available for you and it's free of cost. So now you're able to have free access to that. Again, we're still collecting information about how you use it, when you use it, whether it's effective. So we're still getting that data back, but now you have access.
This is a phase 3 study.
Yes,
for sure.
Now you have access to a medication that you otherwise, it wouldn't have been covered by insurance for you. So that's also a benefit. And so it didn't take you that long to get there, right? So you just had to maybe 3 visits and answering a few questions, and then you have access to it. So a study like that is it's pretty simple, I guess, that you could say, as far as it's not like very time consuming, and you do get a benefit out of it, especially if that study drug ends up working for you and it wasn't something that was going to be covered by insurance.
Exactly. And I don't know if I mentioned, but you work at UCSD. You're doing this research at UCSD, University of California, San Diego. We would love to have you at one of our challenge chats. We need to do a challenge chat for you to
tell me about what do we do there?
So challenge chat.
Sounds like there's eating involved. I don't mind that.
So Diverse Research Now, we have monthly events, challenge chats, where we invite the community out to the event. We feed them a very nice dinner in City Heights at our headquarters location, and we share with them and educate them on some aspect of a health condition. And this is definitely a common health condition. and we have it in the community amongst community members because we want to get the word out to more diverse communities. So that area is a very diverse area. We advertise to try to tell people to come out, and we are hoping to reach more diverse people. So we can tell them about the research and they can possibly participate in the research, because what are we all about? We're all about inclusive research, getting the word out to the community and getting the data, having the data be a little bit more representative of everyone, right, of us all. So tell me a little bit, what do you think about that aspect? I know that you might not, you probably have coordinators and other people that kind of recruit and help with enrollment. And so you probably, I don't know, as a PI or a co-PI, you might just see who comes in.
So we're all within our division kind of involved in recruitment. So our patients, the patients that we're seeing in clinic are the people who we are recruiting for studies. We do provide information to other people too, but largely we are recruiting from people who are referred into our practice. We're able to give them information. If we're seeing them in the clinic for migraine and they meet the criteria, then we're able to provide them with information and say, do you want to be contacted by a study coordinator? Do you want to know more information? We can provide them with information about the studies and they can follow up if they want to do that. So that's where most of the patients are coming from. We also collaborate with the emergency room. They see a lot of patients coming in with, maybe they haven't been diagnosed with migraine, but they are coming in with a bad migraine. So they're coming to the emergency room for treatment. And so we collaborate with them to get them to also provide information about getting referrals to neurology or calling about clinical trial if the physician who's seeing them there is familiar with our studies and thinks that they would be a good fit, then they can send them straight to us. We do try to get the word out.
Yeah, you are doing amazing work. Definitely want to showcase and highlight the work that you're doing as much as we can.
Yeah. And even if people aren't, not everyone needs a clinical trial. I think headache is such a common thing. And there are so many things we can do even before we get to medications. There are so many things we can just do in our lives to make things better that people just don't necessarily know all the time. So even for, I don't know how many times too, like I'll be seeing a kid in the clinic and then their parent is undiagnosed with migraine or has, maybe they know they have migraine, but they just never have sought any medical attention for it because they don't think that there's anything that can be done. There's just a lot of options that are out there.
I do feel like a lot of us live with certain things just because we don't think anything could be done. I mean, I don't want y'all out there doing that. I want you all to seek help.
And I do that. You know what I see? When I'm on social media, again, because it's so common, right? I often see people posting about, what do you recommend? This headache and that headache. And I'm like, could you please just go see a specialist, please? Because first of all, we don't want to miss a real problem, right? Blood pressure, other things that can cause you to have headaches. We want to make sure that we are checking for those other things. We don't want to just assume that we know what's happening when we haven't, especially if we have other comorbid medical conditions. So certainly, seeking out a specialist, that's something that anyone can be referred to a specialist. People shouldn't be afraid of asking for that.
And the first step is telling their primary care, because a lot of times people do have to be referred out to that specialist. So the first step is actually letting them know that there is a problem. Even if you don't think it's a problem, let your primary care know that it's a problem or that you're having this problem. And if they should be addressing it. A lot of times that's an issue in minority communities. We have, of course, historically been told our doctors that something's going on and then they don't believe us and different things. But those are not the right doctors for you if that's what's happening. So find a doctor that is going to listen to you so we can get things diagnosed. I feel like sometimes we're scared of diagnoses. Like we're scared to diagnose.
I feel like, people are, I understand. I mean, to a neurologist, that's scary, right? Just like it is neurology. It sounds scary. I understand. But people come in, but there's a lot we can do, especially for these sorts of things. So it's not something to be afraid of. It's really, you're coming in, we're having a conversation, and really we're just trying to optimize your health, right? Maximize your quality of life. So, and there's stuff we can do. It doesn't necessarily always have to be a medication. So certainly if we need medications, we're prescribing medications, but certainly, especially in pediatrics, it's not always medications. There's actually been clinical trials that have shown that, there's other, especially for pediatrics, there's a pretty high, what they call placebo effect. It's really just that relationship with the physician. It's really just making sure that you're paying attention to some of these other factors can do, for a lot of people, can work as well as prescribing a daily medication. It's just the attention to those things which can help people get better.
Okay, before we go, anything you want to say to pharma or pharmaceutical reps? Because I'm hoping that our podcast is being heard by big pharma and they're listening in to what the community is saying, what doctors, researchers, and you are saying that are seeing patients. So I'm curious about the protocols that you're seeing. Are there any big barriers that you're seeing in these protocols for the ones that you're reading?
Yeah. And I was just thinking about this today since I was in that site visit earlier, thinking about whether we're a good site for a particular trial. But I think for the most part, the things they're asking us to do are reasonable.
Okay.
And when we're in a clinical trial, we want to make sure that we are having those touch-based sessions, keeping in touch during the trial so that if there's any deviation or any issues that we're on top of it, right? So we're not trying to kind of have you doing something quote unquote experimental and then we're not checking in with you and making sure you're okay during the whole process. So
safety.
I think that's reasonable. So when we're looking at the one we were just doing, I think for one of the phases of the trial, there's 5 clinic visits, but you need those clinic visits because we need to make sure that we're checking you along the way and that we're touching base and that we have good communication during the whole time. Those sorts of things can become barriers when you live further away from a study site, but we were talking about how can we make this accessible? What are we offering to patients? So certainly clinical trials can offer reimbursement as far as funds for gas and travel, or if we need to do lodging. These are things that we're able to offer depending on where someone's coming from. I think they are aware, and certainly we are aware because we know that for our site, we're seeing people coming from hours away, right?
Really?
So people who need to get care with us, they don't all live around the hospital, right? We offer telemedicine and people are getting on and they're glad that we're offering telemedicine because prior to COVID, those people would have had to drive down here, right?
Yeah.
If you live all the way up in Menifee or Paris or something like that, or you're out in El Centro, that's quite a barrier to have to come here all the time. So it's been great to be able to have telemedicine. That just is a reminder that we have people coming from all over to seek care with us. So we want to make sure that they have those clinical trials accessible to them too. So being able to provide vouchers for transportation and lodging if people need it, these sorts of things make it accessible.
More of that.
Yeah.
So that's the takeaway. We need more, funding for travel and vouchers if we need to reach out a little further than just the surrounding community.
I've seen what some people have been successful if there's a particular population that they're working with, if they're able to go and do, if you have a group of people and they're in an area, actually taking a visit to them, to the community versus having them come to you. And that works too if you're able to
if you're able to do that
protocol.
For sure. I know that's what I used to do way back when I worked at a site. We used to go out to the community to do the assessments and do things. So we brought the research assessments to them so they wouldn't always have to come to us. So that's always a good option too, for sure, making that possible. Thank you so much. And thank you for all the amazing work that you do. It's so impactful and we're hoping that we can make a bigger impact more and more. So we're hoping that the community sees this and they understand, don't be scared to go to a neurologist, guys. If you have a problem, they're not scary people. Look at her. So thank you so much. And we're hoping to see you at some of our events coming up. Yes. We have a networking event coming up, guys, February 18th, where we're asking sponsors to come out from clinical research professionals to come out and hear about diverse research now and also network with other people that are like you, like-minded. And then we're going to have a conversation at that networking about how to address the community and how to engage with the community. That's the biggest question in the field right now, in the research field, is how do we get the community, how do we bridge this gap? And that is exactly what Diverse Research Now is created for, to bridge this gap. Yeah. So we're going to have a great conversation there on February 18th. And then we have our spring gala coming up May 16th. Hoping to see you there. We got to talk about that. So we have that coming up, and we hope that people can come into town and be at our gala. It is a fundraising gala to help further our mission. But the next day, on that Saturday, May 17th, we're having our second annual Community Clinical Child Health Forum, which Dr. Frederick hosted
That was
last
so
year.
wonderful. That was really great. So
hoping to get her back again this year. If you want to meet her in person, you could come there. So yeah, we have some amazing things coming up. So yeah, we're gonna continue the conversation about inclusive research and try to continue to make an impact. And thank you for what you do.
Yes, thank you for what you do. You know, when I first saw you on social media or something, I'm like, I need to. I need to know more about that.
Yay! I'm so happy we are connected, and we will stay connected. All right. Thank you guys for another episode, and have a good one.
Thank you.